Hey everyone, Reaper here again with another video. This video, I just want to have a good old-fashioned discussion. Even though you can't really converse with me as I'm speaking, I invite you to put comments, leave comments, and maybe one day I'll do a live chat if I could ever figure out how to do that or remember how to do that. So where we could interact and have these lengthy conversations about certain issues, certain things going on in the comic book collecting world. Now months ago, I remember creating a video. There's something like, is comic book collecting even fun anymore, or is it even worth it, and stuff like that. And I talked about that topic with Reggie on his show a couple of months ago. And I think it's an interesting question to ask. And I'll talk about some of the experiences I've had, my personal experiences, and some of the, like a follow-up to that video, and my personal experiences, and my experiences talking to, in general, some new collectors. All right. First off, there are all different types of collectors out there. What I mean by that is, I guess, people collect for different reasons, right? But you might be somebody that's interested in just making a profit down the line, or quickly, whatever it is. It's really your business. But for me, and as you know, you've watched my channel, I've said this a million times. I started collecting because I had an interest in collecting these books. I guess, I've always had an interest in collecting things. I always liked having tangible things. Now, I know I have a couple of friends that are just not into that at all. I have one friend that years ago, he started burning DVDs, movies. He would buy a whole bunch of blank DVDs, and he would find them on the internet, whatever way he found them on the internet, and burn them and have quality DVDs. So he wouldn't buy DVDs anymore. And the DVDs that he did have, he sold them off to Amazon to get a little bit of something to put toward something else. The point is, he never had that feeling of just wanting to have the original. The idea of collecting. Like, for instance, you see these games back here, right? Well, these are all the PlayStation 4 games, and you see over here, you got some PS2, you got some DS, then PS2 continues all the way to the bottom, which you don't see, and you get PlayStation 3. But on the top, which you don't see, is PlayStation 1. Anyway, this is the PlayStation section. Even though I got like a Nintendo thing here and a couple of little things that you can't see above there. But regardless, he was the type, and there are many others out there like this, that like to just emulate. Have a system or on the computer that emulates these games. So why would I want to go and buy a copy of Kuon when it's so expensive? Kuon's like a PlayStation 2 game. Why would I buy that when I can just emulate it on the computer? There's something about, for us, I think, let's bring this back to comic books and collectors in general. I think there's something about comic book collectors, video game collectors, action figures. I don't know how you could. I don't know if this relates to action figures, but anything that's tangible, we like to have it in our hands, right? That's what it means to have something in your hands, tangible. We like to actually have the comic. Let me see. Reach up over here. Here we go. This is one of the ones I'm displaying right now with those clear backboards I got. It's still kind of weird me getting used to it, but they're still pretty good. Anyway. I like the idea of owning the first appearance of the Juggernaut. I like the idea of having the book that came out in the 1960s. Whereas there are some people, whether price is involved or not, prefer to have it digitally. Or prefer to have it trade paperback. They don't need to have the original. They don't have that desire. Like I said, for whatever reason, to have the original. When it comes to a game, I'll just pull out, what do I got here? What do I got here that's worth pulling out to show you? Here we are. This is a pretty cool game. But as you can see, I still have it in the original wrapper. This is for PlayStation 4. It's called The Liar and the Blind Prince. I like the idea. This is like a special edition. I like the idea of having a special edition. It's just cool. Now, I could easily download this game off of the PlayStation Store and have all of the joys of playing the game, all the little extras, downloadable content things, that way too. And that's the way my friend would do it. He likes having the downloaded stuff. He doesn't want to have all this stuff taking up space, and doesn't like to sees no need to own the original piece. He doesn't care about that sort of stuff. But I think a lot of us do. We like having something tangible. We like having the original thing in our hands. And that's part of the joy of collecting. Now, again, talking about, well, is it even fun anymore? I do think it's fun. And I do think that's what keeps a lot of us in it. When we finally get that book in our hands, whether it's a big key or a small key or whatever type of key, it's important. We have it. We could look at it. It's cool to put next to our other comics. That's something that we as collectors feel. That to other people that, like my friend, don't understand. Now, like my friend, he never had this conversation with me, so it's not like he's I don't mean to make it sound like he's challenging me on collecting versus not. No, I'm just using him as an example. Right? But the thing is, though, I think that's one of the joys that I think a lot of people may not understand. And that's one of the reasons why when it comes to talking about comic book collecting, the joy of comic book collecting, I don't really like to talk about it with non-collectors. Now, of course, collector, we could put that, we could use that as an umbrella term and put a bunch of different things under it. Because like I said at the beginning of the video, everyone has their own definition of a collector. You could be a flipper who used to be a collector, or a partial collector that now sells, or somebody that was collecting for so long and now trying to get out of it. There are many different variables to the word collector when it comes to our hobby and other hobbies. Okay? But I do feel that there is a joy, and I cannot talk to other people about comic book collecting. Because usually the first thing that they say is, how much was that? How much was this comic book? Or how much you pay for it? It's none of your business what I paid for it. Does that automatically mean it's a super duper price? No. Sometimes it does. But no. It's my finances are none of your concern. And you're like, well, I'm just asking you how you paid. No, you're asking me a glimpse of my finances. When you ask somebody what you pay for that, well, obviously you paid for it. It's coming out of your finances. It's really none of your business. I only will talk about that sort of stuff with other collectors because they understand. Because then the follow-up question is, let's say it's a book that's $2,000, right? Oh, I spent $2,000 on it. You spent that on a comic book? Again, you don't understand. You simply just don't understand. So that's why I avoid conversations with non-collectors. Someone says, "Oh, you like collecting comics?" Yeah. So, "Oh, what's the biggest comic book you have?" "Oh, I have a lot." That's usually my answer. It's a pretty standoffish answer, but then again, though, in real life I am pretty standoffish. So it's not too far from the way I really am. But there's also something else under there that, you're not a collector. I really don't want to talk to you about these sort of things. I'd rather just talk to collectors about this sort of stuff because I feel that they would better understand. But, I sometimes, though, when it comes to collecting and all that stuff, like of all the reasons I said, there's still joy in collecting, having something tangible, having the original. I'm very much into having stuff that came from an earlier time. People that held this that were from the 1960s and the 70s, and looking at the ads in the comics and saying, wow, this is what people were into. This is the way people fashion their hair. These were the things that people like to collect back in this time. They are time machines, as Luther Manning, Patrick would say. He calls them paper time machines. And they are. They really are. But I think all of us got into comics for a lot of similar reasons. And, some people got into collecting comics because they like art, they like stories, they like characters that they can live through. You see a Spider-Man, a lot of people that were his age and the teenagers that may have felt a little socially awkward can live vicariously through this character who is socially awkward, but also can do all this cool stuff. People that like Bruce Wayne, maybe you're interested in the things that he does when it comes to detective work, or like the Bruce Wayne Batman, or like the fact being Bruce Wayne being this rich playboy that could do whatever he wants, and he decides to fight crime and all that. People like Superman because he is somebody that you could look up to, much like Wonder Woman, for girls that could look up to. That's very powerful and a very fleshed out, well-developed character who has so many decades of history behind her, and now films. So these are the things I think draw us to comics. I was drawn to the cards because, again, I like that sort of stuff. I like sifting through things, whether they're cards, games, and action figures. I always remember I liked the artwork on the old Nintendo boxes. So I was always drawn to art. I like to draw myself. I wasn't very good at drawing, but I still liked it, So I do think that there is some, there's joy in a lot of different things in this hobby. It's not just the prices, and honestly, a lot of us are drawn to that too. I mentioned, I think I mentioned this, often in my videos. Sometimes when a comic book goes down in value, whatever it is, first Spider-Man, first Ghost Rider, first this, first that. And I'll look at some of these posts on Facebook and people saying, oh, look, everything's coming down. And it's like saying to myself, that's ridiculous. So if something's coming down in value, are you buying it? And chances are probably they're not. But the same person will complain a couple years later when the price goes up to something even higher than what it was at its highest. But the point I'm trying to make is I think sometimes collectors get too wrapped up in it. Of course you have to be cognizant of the value of these books. You just don't blindly go out and get books and say, oh, whatever the price is, you have to be aware of it. Of course, we all like the value. It adds to, it adds to the joy of having the book too. It's nice that you have the first appearance of Ghost Rider. It's nice that you have the first appearance of whomever, Wonder Woman or Batman. Well, I don't go that far. I don't know too many people that have the first appearance of Batman, but Spider-Man, like me, and many others. It's the value of it's cool. It's nice, and it's nice to know that you have something like that aside from other things that you have that you could cash in on one day. Okay. You enjoy having the book, you want to keep it, and if one day you make peace with yourself and say it's time to move on, you're still getting something from it. You're still getting money, So it's the gift that keeps on giving. But as I come to a close of this, I have noticed that there are some collectors that get into this hobby, and I think they get into it for the wrong reasons. Now, I know that's a pretty much an absolute by saying that, but just hear me out. I think I was talking to this one guy that was just so concerned of what was going to be the next big thing. I don't think he really cared about the comic book. And, I understand sometimes that's okay. But the problem that I saw with that is it's not just that, I couldn't care less about these comics. I just want to buy the ones that are going to be valuable. And people do that and make a fortune, and I think that's fine. But I think in his case, and like many others, they really don't know what they're doing. They have no idea, no appreciation for the hobby. They're buying stuff and they quickly regret buying it. And I would say to those people that maybe this hobby, for the purpose in which you're in it, like, trying to flip, is probably not for you. Sometimes we buy these things and it doesn't pay off right away. And I think there are a lot of people that buy these books, they spend whatever it is they spend on them, and they're expecting a value payoff right away, something to make them feel comfortable that they spent this amount of money on this book, and they don't get it right away, and they become panicked, and some rightfully so, and sometimes they shouldn't be panicked because it takes time for it to go up. But if you're so concerned about making a return quickly, and you're that type of collector, I would say this hobby really isn't for you, because I think you're going to make a lot of bad decisions and it's going to affect you negatively when it comes to your finances. So if you're looking for the next thing to get into, like, oh, these comics, these seem to be a good thing to cash in on. But if you have no idea what to do, you have nobody to help you, you're not willing to learn, I would say stay away from it. if that's your sole concern. But if you're looking to get into this hobby because you want to maybe read some of those stories that you saw on the screen, or the variation from the comic to the screen, or you want to have some of these characters in your collection, or you like having things that are tangible, then I'd say it's a great hobby to get into. It's kind of expensive though right now. For new collectors, indeed it is pretty expensive. And I've often said this, I don't know how new collectors stay in it, because there's so many great books out there that I would want that if I was just starting out, I wouldn't be able to get, because the prices are so high. Yes, prices do come down, but I don't believe that a lot of the books that people are interested in, I don't think the prices are going to come down to what they were before the boom with prices. So continue collecting the way you collect. Just some things to talk about, some things interesting. Tell me what you thought about some of the things I said, or maybe address some issues in the comments that I didn't bring up that you might like to see talked about or fleshed out in another future discussion video. Until then, take care.